Alrighty, party peoples of the interwebs, Viva Fry, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida Rumbler, back in my home office, and we are all following the disaster catastrophe that are the Los Angeles fires. I have immediate family out there and numbers of extended family out there, and getting firsthand accounts as to what's going on. It's madness. It's absolute madness. And when you get the likes of Bernie Sanders reflexively, instinctively jumping on the climate crisis explanation for this, it's a little enraging, to say the least. I've been diving into it. I took notes this time because I don't want to miss anything. I've been diving into it, trying to filter through fact, fiction, information, disinformation, rumors, confirmed stories, because it's fog of war, it's a battle of information out there, and I genuinely think there are some players who want to sow disinformation into the discourse, and I'm doing my best to filter through it. I put together the, not top 10, but 10 items that I have now been able to independently confirm, verify as being contributing factors to this catastrophe. This catastrophe is bankruptcy. It's like, holy cows, the 2008 crisis of the housing crisis. How did it happen? It just seems like it happened overnight, when in reality, it's the culmination of a series of failures, year over year, possibly decade over decade, that culminates in this cataclysmic disaster when everything happens all at once and brings out all of the weaknesses of the systems that have been years in the making. Number one item, which started off as rumor, urban legend, confirmed truth. Whether or not it's the causal factor, probably not. It's just one of the contributing factors. The diversion of fresh water into the San Joaquin Delta. This is something that is ostensibly done to protect the wildlife, in particular the San Joaquin Delta smelt, which is a smelt that migrates, spawns up the San Joaquin Delta, and they need a certain level of salinity in the water, or a certain level of dilution of salinity, because they go into the estuaries, and if it's too salty, they will not be able to spawn, reproduce, whatever. So they are literally pumping fresh water into the delta to maintain a lower level of salinity for the wildlife. Whether or not that's the only reason, we don't know. But it is definitely truth that they were diverting fresh water into the delta to preserve wildlife. Some people hypothesize that it's actually not to save the delta smelt, which hasn't been seen in the last 6 years in the wild anyhow. Some people hypothesize that it's for farmers using the delta smelt as an excuse to retain ownership or control over large swaths of fresh water. Possibly. Confirmed, however. Number two, insurance companies were canceling policies. We heard a number of people saying this. James Woods was saying this. And some people were saying, no, it's not true. Others are saying it's true and it's a conspiracy to burn people out of their homes. Whatever the intent is, it is true that insurance companies were canceling policies for a number of reasons. This is not necessarily to blame the insurance policies. Nobody's going to do business if they lose money. This is to say it's a matter of policy failure and a matter of fact and a matter of advanced warning that when insurance companies are canceling their policies in swaths because the risk is just too high, you can't say you didn't know about the risk and then not have water in the fire hydrants later on. We'll get there in a second. So Allstate allegedly canceled some 30,000 policies because the risk was just too high. That's just Allstate. Other insurance companies also canceled fire insurance because the risks were just too high. Another element contributing to this, which I've been able to independently verify, I mean, you go and research online, that there was a limitation on how much insurance companies could increase their policy premiums without state authorization. And so what ended up happening, from what I understand, it's 7%. If you increase it more than 7%, you need state authorization. It was not cost effective or even possible to maintain these high risk policies. And so they canceled them in swaths in the months leading up to this absolute egregious disaster. Insurance companies to blame? Who knows? It's an indication of a problem that nobody took proper precautions to mitigate, minimize, should it come to fruition. Number three, poor forest management. We've been talking about this for a long time. Every time there's a forest fire in California, every time the wildfires get out of control, there's discussion about poor forest management. Not collecting debris, allowing certain plants to grow, planting certain plants that grow fast but then become fire hazards afterwards. Poor forest management has been a subject of discussion for decades. Confirmed, everybody knew it. Item 4, antiquated infrastructure resulting in the fire hydrants having gone dry. I had a discussion yesterday during the live stream. If you didn't watch it, Viva Fry on Rumble and across social media. fire hydrants were confirmed to be running dry. Some people are saying, all right, well, it's a crisis. The pumps are going down, whatever. Other people are saying they go dry at higher elevations because it takes water pressure to bring the water up there. The water hydrants running dry is the fact. You can find all the explanations, all the excuses in the world. But when you don't have water in fire hydrants to tend to fires when you need them, you have a systematic failure at all levels. And to say that the infrastructure weaknesses has not been known for decades, it has been known for decades. Kind of like the healthcare problems in Canada. Oh, we're overloaded for COVID. Yeah, you were overloaded for the flu in 2018. Don't tell me that you didn't know about it before. And so infrastructure has always been weak. It's always been antiquated. It hasn't been tended to enough, which brings us to item 5. Budget cuts by the mayor, Karen Bass. Her name is Karen. What an unfortunate time to be named Karen, and what an unfortunate time to be a Karen who fought for budget cuts for the fire department and didn't get the budget cuts that she wanted. This was, news going around, urban legend, who knows? No, it's confirmed truth. She wanted to cut the budget by $23 million. I think the budget was something like 800 and some odd million. Was only able to cut it by 17 million. So you have budget cuts to the fire department, and apparently also confirmed a substantial portion of the budget going to fight homelessness and not help the fire department. Karen Bass is going to go down in history as the worst mayor ever. By the way, she was also in Ghana, I believe, at the time the fire broke out, and I don't blame her for that. You don't know when the disaster is going to hit. You can't help it if you're on some sort of trip to Ghana to see the inauguration of the Ghanaian president. I mean, who knew it was going to happen now? But she came back, and now she's tending to it, and the media is saying good for her for coming back and being a leader. Which brings us to another failed leader, the fire chief. I don't care about sexual orientation. I don't care about gender in the best possible way. It's up to you. If we have a discussion over a beer, we can talk about it. As far as it goes to assessing competence and whatever, irrelevant. And so when people make it an item of discussion, then it becomes relevant because they've made it relevant. The fire chief, I forget her name now, is the first lesbian fire chief. I'm doing a video. What do you need? Okay, have fun. Is the first lesbian fire chief. Like I care. And ordinarily, I wouldn't care. Except when you have the fire chief, who's the first openly lesbian fire chief, coming out and saying, I'm quoting it because I don't want to misquote this. Dedicated to, quote, creating, supporting, and promoting a culture that values diversity, inclusion, and equity. This is on her description as a bio. You know what I want from a firefighter? Fire chief, fighting fires, preparing the fire team to fight fires. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, that might be a wonderful secondary benefit to the extent that you get it incidentally by doing what your primary objective should be, preparing to fight fires, which quite clearly they weren't. Prioritizing the homelessness. And by the way, prioritizing fighting homelessness through the firefighting department. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI leads to people D.I.ing. What else was going on? Confirmed now? Vaccine mandates had pushed out a number of firefighters. They were pushed out, put on leave, because they refused to comply with vaccine mandates. The number varies depending on which area of LA you're looking at. The number varies. Some people say 100, some people say 400, some people say more, some people say you'll never know because there was soft pushing out and hard pushing out. The bottom line, the vaccine mandates resulted in no less than, by the lowest end of the estimate, over 100 firefighters leaving the force, being pushed out because they refused to submit to vaccine mandates. And it's not just that you're pushing out firefighters and that you are understaffed to respond to a crisis. Over the last 2 years, also confirmed, they were donating firefighting equipment to Ukraine in 2022. So they'll say, look, that was 2 years ago. That had nothing to do with being ill-equipped for this time around. We didn't even have enough firefighters in the first place. So we weren't short of equipment. We were short of firefighters because we pushed those out through vaccine mandates. And last but not least, I think we're up to 10. We should be up to 10. That a lot of these fires seem to be started by arson. Just today, the Kenneth fire seems to be confirmed to have been started by arson. Don't need to name the individual, but it's allegedly a homeless person, allegedly armed with a, quote, flamethrower. Others are saying it was a butane lighter, and apparently the individual's excuse, from what I was able to surmise as of Friday morning, is that it was a butane lighter to smoke marijuana. The homeless person who is responsible, alleged to have started the Kenneth fire, which is the latest of the fires, was armed with a flamethrower. And you have Bernie Sanders, taking to Twitter to blame climate crisis for the fires in Los Angeles. What you have is a culmination of incompetence, corruption, negligence. Egregious criminal negligence, period. Policy failures year over year, and nobody cares until the disaster hits. Everybody feels good about their diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then you don't have firefighters to fight a fire. Or you got diversity, equity, and inclusion, but you have empty fire hydrants. I guess you could say that this fire is colorblind. It's economically blind in that it's destroying houses of Paris Hilton and the poor. It's destroying it. It doesn't see color. This fire doesn't see color. Unfortunately, the fire department, which prioritizes cutting its budget, fighting the homeless, I guess this is one of the solutions that you could have. Indirect solution to the homeless is you make everybody homeless. Get everybody out of there now. Nobody has a home to go to. Everybody's going to get the heck out. It's an abject disaster that results from incompetence, corruption, and negligence that is years in the making. And when those hacks like Bernie Sanders, AOC come out and blame climate crisis and ignore the list of 10 contributing factors, none of which individually would be determinate, but all of which together make for the perfect, catastrophic, end of times storm, people need to be held to political account and legal account. But that's it. Bottom line, those 10 items, I have been able to satisfactorily, to my own satisfaction, confirm accurate. The smelt. The smelt isn't even native to California, by the way. The San Joaquin Delta smelt that they are fighting hard to protect, allegedly, is not even native to California. From what I understand, it was brought in from Japan. So they're trying to fight to preserve a Delta smelt that they haven't seen in 6 years that's not even native to California. And just to quell one piece of disinformation, misinformation, incorrect information, the firefighters we saw in a video using bags to put out the fire, they were not women's purses. From what I have been told from the aggregate knowledge of the internet, they were actually using these emergency fire bags, which they use when they don't want to roll out the fire hoses to put out a small fire. The problem is now I think they were using those fire bags because there was no use to roll out the fire hoses because there was no water in the fire hydrants. And then someone's going to say, well, that's just the way it is. Let's go send some more money to Ukraine. No water in the fire hydrants. That says it all. If you like what I do, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure you've turned notifications on. Viva Fry, vivabarneslaw.locals.com for the best above average law community out there. And we will be talking about this during our Sunday show with Robert Barnes. Viva and Barnes, law for the people. That's it. Now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps. Booyah!